very surprised, honestly.
When we would go talk to everybody, and we all went out together in different groups, I was amazed how many people knew what was going on in the town. Like, people really were paying attention. And I remember when I was younger, I didn't pay attention to local races like I do after I had kids. And I was amazed how every single person I spoke to knew there was a problem in the town. So, but I still never thought we'd sweep.
So do you attribute the sweep to the previous council, or I'll call it, my kind of buzzword for it is just Gail and Sue?
Well, my view of it is this is played out like it's a blue wave.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what happened, and I think what Mike was saying is correct. I believe this wasn't people voting for party. I think this is people voting for people. You know, if we look at the people who ran as Democrats, 3 of us have over a decade of public service on boards, commissions, and on the council and other things. 2 of us deeply lived here for 26 years for Karen and Mike's entire life. We raised our families here. We were known to the voters. So people voted for the individuals. They definitely wanted a change, but they weren't voting party. They were voting people. Is how I think.
You don't think they were voting against Sue? You think they were voting for you?
I think they were voting for change, clearly. But they had other options. They could have voted for the independents, and the voter turnout was incredible. And if you look at the numbers, the Democrats won with a lot of Republican votes and a lot of unaffiliated votes. And that tells me they weren't voting for party, those Republicans. They were voting for change, clearly, and for the individuals who are running.
I also think the largest voting bloc in East Greenwich is unaffiliated now. So I really don't think that party matters. I do think, to echo what Mike said, I think it is change. I think it sort of was that people didn't like the direction that the previous council had. Because I don't think this has ever come up before. And to be fair, there were a lot of people who didn't ask about where my affiliation was, and voted, I think, I'd like to think they voted for me for the Mikes.
I like that.
You were the Mikes. What? There were 2 independents running. They had an option to go, those unaffiliated voters. They still went. I mean, you guys, a sweep is, as we've discovered, we haven't had an all one party.
You haven't had a team. You haven't had a group of people
council for 50 years.
As a team. We didn't run. Democrats have traditionally run as unicorns, where they wear my hat is for this issue and my hat's for that issue. Please vote for me. And we didn't do that. We ran as a team because we got together and we talked this all out, and we shared a lot of very specific common goals. And that allowed us to actually present ourselves as a team. If you vote for us, we're going to make these changes. These are our values. And so I think that was something that we could offer them that gave them some belief that the changes we wanted would happen because we were showing as a team and not individuals in that way.
I like that.
What do you think about what Gail was saying on Dan York yesterday? We got she dropped some financial info.
I have a hard time with the fact that Ms. Corrigan chose to go on Dan York to say, to tell us about the town's financial situation when she hasn't given the courtesy to any of us who've been newly elected, to give us that same information. I really think that's inappropriate for a town manager to go on a statewide show and not have at least given that information before, explaining to any of us how this happened. I really do. I thought that was inappropriate of her.
Can either of you speak to that same exact point? I think that's a good point.
Dr. Schwager's been asking for the books since he's been on the council. I now, at this point, am getting my information through the Dan York show, and that's not how it should be. We texted Gail this morning, emailed Gail this morning, and we asked if we could meet as soon as possible, and she could not meet today, unfortunately. She said that to give her some dates. We gave her some dates, and we have not heard back yet still.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, she just sent an
Wednesday,
So-
Wednesday, so 5 days.
You hear it
Right.
at the same time I did.
So since you asked all of us,
Thanks.
so my view of it is that I participated in the public council meeting where Mark had requested the financials.
Yeah.
Our fiscal year ended June 30th. We don't have any financials since April 9th. The local law requires that the year-end financials be presented to at the second council meeting following June 30th, so end of July. The state law requires you provide the Auditor General those same numbers 25 days after June 30th. Mark was asking for them, and they simply said no. The argument was that they were unaudited, so you wouldn't want to have incorrect information. Gail Corrigan said at the meeting that those numbers could vary for as much as $200,000, $300,000, or $700,000. $200,000 is 0.3% of a $63 million budget. $700,000 is 1.1% of a $63 million budget. So I said to them in public comment that I know you feel vulnerable about this, but carrying this beyond the election because there's an audit issue doesn't really make much sense when these aren't material deviations. And you're not even building a budget on it, just sharing it with the public. And now what happens is, even after the election, a sitting council member, Mark Schwager, still hasn't seen these numbers. We're elected and we haven't seen them, and the first time they'll even give us a snapshot is when they tell us the catastrophic financial position they say we're in on the Dan York show.
Yeah, it sounds like you think those numbers were held back for political purposes.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And they were presented on the Dan York show for the first time for political purposes.
The other thing I want to say about the sweep we were talking about earlier, there's also another issue I think that we did so well. When I ran last time, I was a candidate walking by myself. I think the entire Democratic town committee would have been less people than we have sitting here. We had over 40 people, and we only had 3 to 4 working last time. Krista Thompson and Hillary Freeman put together a great Democratic town committee. They started putting all the town council meetings on Facebook, and I think people really were paying attention more. And part of the reason they were paying attention is because the Democratic Party was going out there and saying, this is what they're doing, this is what they're doing. I also think the media coverage was strong, and this is what they're doing. And I also think it hurts when you have all these lawsuits and you're in the paper every day, because when you're on the front page, people are going to read it. So people were engaged. That's the main thing. People were engaged this time.
Will you guys, is there any way Gail Corrigan keeps her job as town manager of East
I want to meet with her. I want to hear what she has to say. I don't like the way the town's going right now.
But didn't you promise as a candidate that you would vote to fire her? Are you not ready to make good on that campaign promise?
I don't think I ever said I feel very, I do not like the way the town's going. She has a contract, and I got to look at the contract and see what's going on. But I really rather not say exactly now that I'm elected until I see the books and see where we're going.
Well, you guys made that campaign promise too.
It's for my vote will be my vote is unequivocally that we're making a change.
You know, is it tomorrow? Is it the next day? I don't know. I don't think she's appropriate as a town manager, and that is my.
And what I've said, so we're in unusual circumstances as to how we would transition. Local government here has never had this before. We face a circumstance where we have an outgoing council, we have a town manager who will be transitioning out, and we don't know who will be going with her.
Yeah.
We are going to likely transition the solicitorship. And so we have many lawsuits pending in many different, probably 5 different forums. And so what we would expect is that a transition can be professional and orderly, and we would expect the outgoing council, the solicitor, and Gail and her team to be professional in helping us transition so that we're in the best possible place to operate the government.
And that it's gonna take 6 days after the election to meet with her, does that give you confidence that she is going to be professional and courteous and helpful in this?
It's too, I don't know that my confidence is enhanced, but I also don't have any reason to believe she's not gonna do it at this point.
Right on, yeah.
So I live in hope on this issue, and I am expecting that she and everyone will behave professionally in this process, and I have no reason to think we won't.
Okay.
So I'm guessing this means Linda Dykeman probably won't be the finance director for much longer either.
I actually don't. I think that's a decision that Linda has to make on her own.
Okay.
Or the ethics board.
I think that I'm not necessarily sure what, I haven't met with either of them, so I don't know what her thought is going forward.
But so far, you're willing to at least entertain the idea of keeping Linda as finance.
I think if she would like to stay and help us transition through the whole transitioning, I don't see why not. I'm not sure that we really discussed Linda per se. I think that everybody assumed since they were sort of a partnership, that they would work as a partnership on their going forward, but I can't say for sure. I've never spoken with Ms. Dykeman.
I mean, it's a lot of transition, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Town manager, finance director for both the town and the schools,
Yeah.
potentially the
Has
fire
anyone-
chief, we need a new
Sorry.
fire chief. It's a lot of
All
transition.
that. So at the moment, what we were talking about was when we transitioned from the town manager. So the town manager job, as we all believe, is not that a role of just an accountant, right? You have to lead. You have to manage lots of people in departments. You have to inspire. You have to. It's a large suite of skills necessary to do this, and I think as a group we don't believe that Gail has that full suite. When it comes to Linda, she's been working kind of in the back office on a lot of this, and for my part, I would want to know more from the school committee and the finance department generally how that's been working. But I'm open on that issue.
Has any of you thought much about whether we should keep the finance of schools and municipality merged?
I think Linda actually said at one meeting, and I think she recalled at one of the school committee meetings that it hadn't been merging well. I'm not sure if it was because it had been done in such a, it was sort of done quickly, and they hadn't really sort of parsed out the individual needs in the town versus the schools. So I think actually that's something that we really need to look at and talk to both the school committee and Victor and the finance department for the town and see where there's been mistakes. I think consolidation is a great idea, but I do think you need to be mindful that there are different needs for different parts of the school. I don't know that maybe this was a little bit maybe rushed, and that's maybe why it didn't work as well.
One reason.
Another issue. So there's another structural issue that we have to address, which is the structure in Rhode Island with an elected school committee that has to fulfill its own mandates but doesn't have levy authority, is that they have to request the appropriation from a town council, which in turn can't manage what they do with the money. When the school committee doesn't get the money it needs to run the schools, their only remedy is to file a lawsuit against the town council. Because that inherent tension is set up by law, it's not personalities, it's the structure. What ends up happening is to have one finance director who would then, what would they do? Advocate the school's position with the numbers, advocate the town's position with the numbers. The person is in an inherent conflict when there is not agreement. And so I don't know the wisdom of having one person do that, even if there's a financial savings.
Love that.
But I'm open to understand it better.
I think it's really interesting that there's like that pragmatic policy reason just to take a look at it. Because I wonder if you guys will everything that, you know, like Gail and Sue did be suspect to you?
That's a loaded
Like,
question.
like, do you feel there's anything?
You know what, I think that I'd like to believe that they went into everything with good intentions, and that they
Do
meant
you
to-
believe that?
I'd like to believe it.
Do you believe it?
I haven't necessarily seen some of that,
Yeah.
but I think that they meant well.
So I think the answer to most of, so it wasn't, the larger narrative is one thing,
Yeah.
right? And I think I can say with certainty that I don't promote driving us into fiscal insolvency as a way of negotiating with the union. So I wanted to stop that particular narrative, okay? So,
Your laugh is all over my video.
So I believe that was ill-conceived. And so, but when it comes to each individual kind of brick in that platform, you know, we haven't been read in. So we don't know the details.
Yeah.
I do know
Yeah.
that we have seen
Mm-hmm.
a lot of PowerPoint presentations about financial data,
Yeah.
which I happen to have some of that data as the planning board chairman. We do the capital budgets.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I see that information is more in the nature of advocacy of a position.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I don't really know. And so until we're read in on these issues, I don't know how we could know individually whether one position is accurate or not.
I got you. So I really laughed at the way that you worded that because I think that's one of the most ill-conceived governmental decisions I've ever heard of.
Well, then you should have run for office.
Can each of you kind of put that in your own words, how, you know, the idea of losing money to put yourself in a stronger negotiating position, like,
You're putting the future of the town at risk to negotiate a better union contract. I'm sorry, I'm not a legal person like either of the Mikes, but even I can see that that doesn't seem to be the proper way to negotiate for your future. It doesn't seem that, especially in an economic time where it seems, you know, economically we're doing well as a country and as the state is doing fairly well, that why would you do that? This is the time you'd be socking away money to save. To me, it makes no sense. I wouldn't do that financially, personally, for my family. I don't think we should be doing it for the town. And I think they should have explained that clearly to the citizens of the town. They had a responsibility to all of us to explain what they were doing. And not just, you know, be cagey about that. I really feel very strongly about that.
That was
It's like
kind of
removing your
yours,
arm
yeah.
to fix a broken finger.
say again?
It's like removing your arm to fix a broken finger.
You know, the way I said it to Elizabeth, I said it's like torching my ATM card to get you to pick up the breakfast tab.
No matter what money they would have saved in the long run, would not have been worth the financial devastation they've put us through. And the only thing that will shock me when I read the books is if that I'm not shocked. Because I know that the numbers, when we finally see them, is just not going to be anything that we expect.
Yeah.
Other things we still haven't seen is we still haven't seen the Flanders bills from all the lawsuits. And I don't know what those are going to be. I'm fearful that they could be upwards of $500,000. I don't know.
I think they're like 325 through July.
That's correct.
And so one of the things that I'll be looking at and hoping is that, so it appears that they held the financials until after the election because they didn't want to tell us that we had a $2 million deficit. It appears that they have instructed Bob Flanders not to send legal bills. What I hope doesn't happen is that in the final days of this council, that the bills come in and they pay them.
Would you not pay them?
What I would do is I would look at the contract and I would want to understand the services provided. It doesn't appear to me that the billings were consistent with what I would expect during the contract, where you're billing hourly, where you keep timesheets. These seem to be block bills that are
Yeah.
undecipherable or indecipherable in terms of how time was spent and what was accomplished. As an attorney, I can tell you that my time is billed in 6-minute increments.
Right on, yeah.
If you wanted to look at what I did for a month, you would have a lengthy, detailed description of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of that, because they're dealing with union negotiations or something else, you don't want your bill to be a narrative of the strategy,
Yep.
but you also have to have some basis upon which to evaluate the services rendered and the fees being charged. That doesn't appear to have happened.
How much work do you anticipate it will be just to kind of check to see what I's weren't crossed and what T's weren't
I think
dotted?
it's the latter part. I actually think it's more, I think it's gonna be a lot more than I think previous councils have had to deal with. Because
Mhm.
we're coming in blind. I think that's, and we know that there's problems, and we can't even we have so little knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
We have speculated between ourselves, but I think it's gonna require a lot of time.
I don't think the people of East Greenwich, I think they know there's something wrong, but I don't think they realize how bad it's gonna be. I hope I'm wrong. And I think we might have to do a full audit when we get in there to go through all the books and see where everything is, where the bills have been paid.
How can you know if things aren't being deleted right now? That,
So I assume
What do you do about that?
emails, communications,
Yeah.
financial data?
yeah,
So we have no reason to believe that anyone is sort of acting in a way that's contrary to the best interest of the town in
Mhm.
terms of retention of records.
Okay.
But we of course have the option of a forensic IT audit on all of it. So as we get there, depending upon how comfortable we are as a group with the information that's there, the narrative that we've been provided, we will probably explore whether it makes sense to do such a thing. And that would tell us what, if any of that's happened.
So what do you imagine will be the larger priority? The previous town council talks about these 6 union contracts that are all coming up on June 30th, which is no doubt going to be a lot of juggling for you guys. But at the same time, you'll be looking backwards at what the previous town council.
To me, the biggest thing is the financial picture of the town. Nobody knows where it is, what's happened, and nobody knows. The numbers that have been thrown out are so, they differ week to week, they differ budget to budget. Nobody has an idea. That to me is a huge problem. I don't understand. I think that's a huge, I think that puts us at a huge liability right in the beginning because we don't know where we're standing financially as a town. You know, are we in the red? Where the biggest liabilities are? We know theoretically where they are. It's just that nobody's seen anything. I mean, they won't share.
Right.
They haven't been open with the town. So I think that to me, that is a big thing. At least to me personally, and you know, going further, I've said, and I really believe this. I think we need a forensic audit because I do want to know exactly where the money is, what happened to the money. I think it's well worth the town's time and effort to make sure that we have everything correct before we make any decisions going in the future.
in terms of the firefighter contract, a lot of people have, well, your opponents in the town council race suggested that you guys were bought and paid for. You're gonna give away the store to the firefighters?
So it's interesting because it sounds like what their fear is that we give them a contract that they gave them.
What do you mean by that, Mike? Can you explain that?
Well,
Or 2 councils ago
well,
gave them?
Yeah, the 2 councils ago, right? They
Yeah.
signed this contract, and I know that our president was vice president of that council.
Yep.
And everyone, and now they're claiming that, you know, they fear that we are somehow going to be generous with the firefighters.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that what they fear is that we would give them a contract like they gave them.
Like, right.
And so, in the end, we are going to zealously and aggressively negotiate for the best interests of our taxpayers. We can also do that civilly and fairly and reasonably. We're going to be working with these folks after we're done negotiating. We can do all of that together, and we cannot sacrifice any of those variables. We have to do it all, and we will.
How do we begin to repair the rift that happened between the elected officials and the people that come to work here, punch a clock and come to work here 40 hours?
Well, that's why we're here today. We came to say hi to everybody, introduce ourselves, let them know that this is going to be an open and friendly government once again. I said in my debates, I want this town to be like a Norman Rockwell painting, and that's what I'm hoping it will be, where you see the cop sitting next to the little kid on the stools having breakfast.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. I want to see where everybody loves each other, knows each other. We're trying to make friends today. We're here telling everybody who we are, trying to get their ideas, because I think I don't know everything. I know I don't. And I know that the people that are in here know a lot more than I do. And they've been here 20, 30 years. I want to hear what they think we should do, because that's important to the town too.
I think I've worked with a lot of these people in zoning before. Most of the people that work here are good people. They love the community as much as I do. I think, you know, how do you get the best out of people? You treat them with respect. I think, you know, I don't have to agree with you to be respectful to you. So I think you get more accomplished if you are just, you know, openly civil and willing to discuss and be open-minded to other possibilities. And I think that goes forward as far as everything goes, you know, negotiations. But
And for my part, with my 6.5 years on the zoning and the planning board, is that I've worked with a lot of these people. Like, just letting them know that we value them,
right.
that we understand what's happened the last 2 years. And that's not who we are. There will always be contract negotiations with our employees, but the reason we need them and we value them, they provide essential services for us. They help us do our job. In many ways, they guide our community at kind of the granular level in a way that a council can't. And so we want the best people. We want them motivated. We want them inspired. We'd like them to help us lead. And so I think just talking to them and letting them know that, which we, you know, I think will go a long way to changing the culture.
I'm good.
Is there anything we're forgetting to ask you guys?
No.
How's this, as broad a brush stroke as you can paint, how's this town council going to be different than the previous one?
One word, open. No, I guess I was just say open government.
We'll hyphenate it. We'll hyphenate it.
We're gonna be open. We're gonna, my hope is that there will be public comment at the beginning of every meeting.
Yeah.
There will be public comment at the end of every meeting, because sometimes things come up that people didn't know. And before any, you know, major vote, people will be able to speak during the meeting too, because somebody might bring something up that nobody thought of, and we have a lot of smart people in this town, and I want to hear what they have to say. They might change my mind, because I am going to be open-minded when I'm up there. I listen to what people have to say, and if they say something that I didn't think of, they could persuade me. I saw a lot of times where this previous council made decisions, did not listen to what people had to say, and then everybody ended up being correct. Like, there was a few times where, like, they're telling them, you're violating the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah,
They told them afterwards. So
They
end
were
up
like,
getting,
we know.
well, my point is, maybe if they listened to the people, they could have saved ourselves a lot of lawsuits, but we're gonna listen.
Yeah. Cool, this has been great. If it's any, this is a sea change already for us. You know, like
Yes, it is.
you've
Yes,
all
it is.
seen the
I'm
video
sorry
of
about
what she
now,
had to
man.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The last
yeah, yeah,
conversation
so thanks
we
a
had,
million.
maybe.
Right.